Welcome to Fun is Fundamental. Fun is Fundamental is a podcast for those who realize that the enjoyment of life is about having something deep in our souls which lights our fire. It's for those who maybe have lost that fire and feel like they are missing out on the pleasures of life. In each episode, I will share recent fun activities and focus on why having fun is essential for good health. I'm your host, Alenia, and I invite you to take this journey with me and join the pleasure-seeking movement. Hi. In this episode, I want to talk about going to the movies. And it's one of those things that's like, it sounds really mundane, but we used to go to the movies pretty often, and it had been 2 years since I went to the movies, and we went to go see Dune, and it's not like a perfect movie, but it's so beautiful on the big screen. I really was like, I felt like I had been missing out, missing this. There's something really magical about seeing good cinematography on the big screen and the big sounds and stuff like that. Although I have a little problem with the sound mixing. It was verging at times on Christopher Nolan. So let's stop doing that, directors, please, for the sake of your viewers. It's really hard on them, because it's like, I want to know what's happening, and instead I'm just being bombarded with loud sounds. Yeah, like I used to love going to movies so much. Like I remember even going to the movies by myself, if you can believe it. Who does that, right? I remember seeing 28 Days Later by myself, and it was, it's such a great movie. It's such a beautiful movie for a horror movie. Like, who makes horror movies that look that good, right? I did not go to Dune by myself. I went with, there was 8 of us, which it was like this big event. I don't think I've ever been to a movie with that many people, maybe like 4 or 5, kind of thing. But there were 8 of us. We almost took over a whole row of seats. It was crazy. But it was so great to then talk about the movie afterwards, especially something that's not like a simple story. Like there's a lot of elements. There's a lot of characters. There's a lot of ideas. I was sometimes confused. Luckily, there were a few people that had read the books, or even a couple of them had already seen the movie because it was on HBO Max, But I'm really glad I saw it in the theater first and not just HBO Max, because it's an experience, and it's cinema, and the Martin Scorsese thing where he's just like, these Marvel movies aren't really cinema. They're movies, and they're entertainment, but they're not really cinema, because there's not a lot of craft and nuance with the visuals of them, and sometimes it looks like it's good effects and stuff like that, but some of the other elements to the visuals, sometimes they're just not that great. And so there is a difference between seeing a Marvel movie, which is great to see on a big screen, to have the full sound and everything like that, but there's just something about seeing this big, epic, striking, very grand kind of thing on a big screen. There's just sometimes nothing like it. There's some things that you just have to see on the big screen. And so I'm really glad to be able to go back to the movies occasionally, sometimes. I want the theaters to survive what's happened, I don't want everything just to be on the home screen. I want to still have that experience of being able to go to the movies, because there's something really magical about it sometimes. And, there's something about it that makes you feel really alive and connected to the amazing brilliance and beauty of the world and of other humans. It's very connecting, and I feel like that's something that we probably need even more of right now because it's easy to feel alone and isolated during these times and to feel like there's not enough empathy and like that we're not all part of the same human race. I think that cinema as an art is one of the great things that can bring us together, really, ultimately. And so I don't want it to be something that just dies out. Like, that's just like not, I don't know, not really a thing that we do anymore. And there's also something about, I mean, obviously, this movie, like, people were really quiet, but there's something about, like, the shared experience of being in a theater with other people and, like, laughing at the same things and being scared at the same things, that's also really connecting. I didn't think I was going to feel so emotional about going back to the movies after 2 years, but I did. I am like it's like kind of just the thought, like just talking about it right now, like makes me feel really emotional about it. I mean, especially with the idea that it does sometimes just feel like it's kind of being phased out, except for just the big epic cash grab kind of movies, you know, like the Marvel movies, which, I go see the Marvel movies. I enjoy it. I'm not shitting on the Marvel movies. But I want there to be more quiet, contemplative things, with beautiful scenery and things like that also coming to a theater near you and not just at your home because it's not really the same. At least not yet, anyway. So, yeah, here in the Seattle area, pre-pandemic, they were already like some closures of independent movie theaters happening. And so I was already kind of worried that if you only have, Regal and AMC and, the big movie theaters, that it's, it's already like pointing to the demise of movie theaters. And, obviously with the pandemic, it's like accelerated things. There's another theater that is in danger of closing, the Cinerama, which there's not, I guess, like the Hollywood one closed like permanently due to the pandemic. And ours is like, they haven't said that they're closing permanently, but it's like not necessarily looking good. But yeah, it's just, I think about the excitement that I've experienced going to movie theaters, like I remember like, as a young teenager, I guess I was about 13 when Jurassic Park came out, and the feeling of like awe that you got when you saw the dinosaur, the T-Rex for the first time. I don't want that to go away I mean, like, for ourselves, like as you get older, you're more, it's harder to impress you, I definitely try to hold on to feelings of awe when I look at the world because I like to feel excited and aware of how amazing this world is, And cinema is definitely something that can convey the absolute beauty and majesty of the earth that we live in, the world that we live in. And there's really nothing like it than on the big screen. As great as our home entertainment systems are becoming, it's still not the same. And I'm a person that I don't necessarily want like a TV that will take up the whole wall, unless it's like I become wealthy one day and I am able to have just a theater room, right? And you can just have a wall that is a TV, right? And surround sound and all that stuff. But I don't know, it's still not the same as, going to the theater. And, the Cinerama and the IMAX, like, are these special screens, and special experiences. And, I want children to be able to experience that feeling of awe that I had when I saw Jurassic Park. And I want this to exist, continue to exist. I want people to keep on going to the theaters, and obviously we have to weather what's happening right now in a lot of industries. Like, it's not just the movie theaters that are in danger of changing and not existing, and things are hard, obviously. But I guess this is my impassioned plea, my 2 cents of why I think that movie theaters should continue to play a role in our society. It's just sad that, like, so many theaters have already closed, and then so many are in fear of closing. Like, it's so close, And I think of just generally how we consume media is so much different, and how we have like such shorter attention spans now, I feel like. And I recently watched this video about kind of the death of classic movies, basically, and why it matters that we should be watching them, and I think that the fact that so many younger people, millennials and younger and stuff, are turned off by older movies is says something about, like, our attention span, and like the idea that if it's black and white it's gonna be boring, or I know people that like won't watch things with subtitles and stuff, and I don't know. I don't want to close myself off to things. Obviously, if there's some things that you're not going to like, that's fine. But, like, at least give it a shot, So, like, my husband and I have, like, we kind of made, like, a little list of, like, here's 10 classic films, pre-1990 was our definition of classic, that we want to see. And we have some things that are foreign and some things that are domestic, and some, from like different time periods also, so that we can just like get a little taste of different things, and then like be like, yeah, I want to see more of that. Like, we watched like Rashomon, and yeah, I'm like, I want to see more Kurosawa films. That was great, kind of thing. So I don't know. I guess I want to encourage others to kind of push themselves outside of their comfort zones a little bit more. There's a lot of growth and self-discovery that can happen when you just like do something that's a little outside of your comfort zone. And I mean, how safe is just watching a movie that's outside of your comfort zone, really? Generally, I mean, obviously, if you're like deathly afraid of horror movies, you don't necessarily you don't have to torture yourself with like the scariest horror movie just to push yourself outside of your comfort zone. But there's a lot of tamer ways to just like nudge yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit. And so we've been doing that a little bit. And yeah, I think it's good to just kind of challenge yourself a little bit, and be open to new things and to growing as a person. So yeah, I guess that's my plea to save cinema, and and to like maybe go see smaller films occasionally. I know going to the movies is not cheap, and so like I personally don't go to see smaller movies as much as I used to. I am guilty of seeing spectacles that are just for entertainment on the big screen. I think Dune is quite really artistic and beautiful, but it's definitely an epic film, and so it definitely, I don't know, I feel like it kind of straddles the line of cinema and entertainment, as Scorsese would put it. Although, it's very beautiful and artistic and quiet, so it's really not like a Marvel movie. So I'm going to close out with a quote. Film is dream. Film is music. No art passes our conscience in the way film does, and goes directly to our feelings, deep down into the dark rooms of our souls. That is a quote by Ingmar Bergman. Film is all about like the human experience and what it means to experience the world. And it's about, feelings and dreams and aspirations, and it's the dark and the light and the wind in the trees and the depths of the ocean, and it takes us everywhere that we want to go. And I guess that's why it is worth preserving. I hope that you are staying safe, having some fun, and that you get to see a movie sometime in the theater in the future, soon-ish. Obviously, not everyone's comfortable with it yet, and I get it. Yeah, so have some fun, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!